transportation, our design project will be Skylink Transportation System by Zoox. Our mission statement is about designing a modular transportation system connecting uptown to the greater Cincinnati area, utilizing safe and reliable autonomous vehicle, whilst emphasizing an intuitive, stress-free, and personalized experience.
So let's look at the current state of the Cincinnati area. For our project, we were operating within the Innovation Corridor, and this is the area that is outside of 1819 and goes along MLK and basically borders UC campus. For the social, technological, economic, environmental, and political factors, it's very typical of an urban area around a campus, and most of the user base is students and then also people who work at the hospital. And so looking at the demographics, we basically divided into three groups: residents, students, and visitors. We have a lot of people who come from out of town just to explore Med Campus, and then we also have a large base of students who go to UC. Looking at the field, we noticed that there are limited bike lanes, there are large intersections, and there are a lot of bus stations, so it's not very conducive to micromobility in a lot of areas. There's a lot of old and outdated defaced city property, and then there are red bike stations which don't get a lot of use.
All right, next we're looking at the current state of micromobility. So our group looked at main users who are age ranged from 16 to 29 years old, 2 the early adopters, 3 the future trends. And these early adopters, we looked outside the US and China, where around 89% use micromobility per week to get to work. Also micromobility around the world, we looked at Paris's 15-minute city, Shimla's extreme elevations in Sweden, and the BZZT. In the future of micromobility, we really want to design our system to bring back first-time users, focus on experience, and create attractive branding. All of these factors will help push our system forward and make sure it's a unique system that can be used by our user groups.
Now that we've looked at the future of micromobility, we can look at the future of Cincinnati, looking forward to 2035 and those future trends. Some of the future trends that we observed are an increased focus on hyperconnectivity, personalized solutions, and a shared economy. From that, we derived what we think is most important in creating ideal mobility solutions. Number one being designated transportation systems in place of the current solutions for public transportation, customized personal commuting, and then maximizing resources and time.
Based on our research and field study, we were able to produce 3 personas that cater to the majority of the people in our demographic in our area. We were able to do an on-site survey where we interviewed kind of a wide variety of people in our area, including UC students, a local mother, and doctors at UC Health. And the commonality between all these people, they did not like current public transportation systems because they were either dirty, unsafe, or just inconvenient for them. Our first persona is Juliana, and she's a student. Her main pain points are mainly just the amount of time it takes for her to walk in between classes, or the amount of time it takes for her to wait for public transportation. And she also is, her daily experience is largely affected by weather conditions. This is Juliana's schedule. We made schedules for all of our personas just to identify key pain points in their routines. Our second persona is Zoe, and she's a hybrid office worker. Her main pain points and frustrations lie during her commute to and from work. And this is Zoe's schedule. And then our last persona is Rob, and he is a visitor to the area with limited mobility. His main pain points and frustrations are caused from just the lack of assistance for his physical limitations, and it's just very hard for him to move around the area and use current public transportation options. And then this is Rob's daily schedule. Again, we made these schedules to help identify key pain points within each user to help cater to them better.
So with all the summary from our research and insight from the user, we distill all of that in trying to identify what that means for our system and our design goal. The design goal that we laid out is to create a transportation system that emphasizes on 5 elements: intuitive, reliable, safe, personalized, and integrated by using different technologies such as AI and integration and to create a intuitive, stress-free user experience from the scheduling all the way to drop off and be a part of the user daily routine. And the work being split up in different way with Quinn in charge of the hub and the infrastructure design. The vehicle will have two parts, the ground unit and the gondola unit, being split between Hannah and John, with me focus on the user experience and how different components of our system work together. And lastly, the branding and CMF will be taken care by Friedrich. So we'll look at a quick overview of the breakdown of a proposed system. We'll have a centralized transit hub in different community hub spot within Uptown and the greater Cincinnati areas, with number 3 being potential pickup point being carried out by the smaller ground unit vehicle, and the suspension rail system will be the designated transportation system for the gondola unit. A quick overview of our service blueprint, and we create different key point of the user interaction and trying to identify the touch point and interaction that will move forward into our design ideation phase. And we validate those interaction point by creating a physical mock-up of the vehicle, understanding the physical constraint of the space and identify what the touch point need to be and what's the design element that need to be incorporated into our design.
Now that we have all that, we're kind of focusing on designing a thematic for the entire project. For the project, we developed 3 main CMF themes, and from that we selected one. The first one being theme A, which is neo-futurism. The keywords behind this theme are flow, connect, and advance, and this one is the most true to the original Zoox branding. Very future-forward thinking and focused on those kind of neon blues and purples. Our second CMF theme is called Revive Modernity. The keywords for this would be accent, minimal, and directionality. The idea behind this is kind of a minimal, white or black finish, and then the main focus or touch points within the vehicle or spaces you're operating within would be highlighted by these very bright, vibrant colors. And then finally, CMF theme 3, which is the theme we decided to move forward with, is called Tonal Tech. The keywords for this are embrace, integrate, and element. The idea behind tonal tech is essentially to bring kind of those earth tones and warm glows that can only be found in interiors and bring them on the road with you and kind of like enhance the user experience by integrating those meaningfully. From that, we developed a mood video, which we'll showcase later. And then behind the tonal tech, we did even more materiality research and goals, from which we derived 3 main points that we want to focus on, being 1, light as a device, 2, integrated functionality, and then 3, sustainable innovation. Focusing on those, we did more trend industry research. The first being light as a device. From that, we found something called in-mold structural electronics, which is essentially the integration of electrical components into plastic molding, which is already currently being used in the automotive industry. Second, integrated functionality. We looked into a project by Google called Jacquard, which is essentially enabling the use of smart fabrics in everyday garments. And then finally, sustainable innovation. We observed a company called Knit in Motion, which focuses on the structural purposes or potential for knit fabrics. Finally, CMF planning and sourcing. It was very important to us that we were rooting this idea in reality, so we did go and find various sources on the internet and sourced individual products to kind of derive for each of our actual components in our hub and vehicles.
All right, designing the hub. I started off the ideation with abstract imagery, focusing on some of the Zoox brand language, but also extrapolating it out, looking at organic forms that are naturally occurring, as well as looking at a start of CMF with glass and greenery, having interior courtyards and soft forms throughout the entire hub. Using CAD Mapper, the team and I just looked at the environment that we'd be designing in, and we saw that the Burnett area is a area that we could incorporate our design and connect it with the innovation Uptown corridor and also campus, as well as getting more downtown with our gondola system. Gravity Sketch played a large part in the ideation process, doing iterations quickly off of that CAD mapper data, and allowed us to see proportions, user interactions with the ground units and the gondolas, as well as how the Skylink system, which is our gondola system, would work and interface with both users working in the hub and then users using the hub for transportation. Here's some continued concepts just showing the breadth of work in Gravity Sketch, and then also finished keyshot scenes that I worked with Friedrich to start to apply some sort of materiality to get a grasp on what the final result would look like. And then moving into sketching and doing iterations from Gravity Sketch to sketching, we've finally laid out a form where we have these ribs lining a glass paneling with an upstairs for the gondola, a downstairs for commerce, and then some unique topology to Burnett that would encase the entire hub. Here's a little user flow diagram that just helps lay out the path that users would take on the ground floor and the upper level, which is the gondola section, as well as a small cutout in the bottom where we were planning on putting the Evo B ground units so that they could have a spot to house for users to be able to take them.
As Quinn mentioned, development was very rooted in collaboration, and you'll see this even more so in our vehicles, but making sure that everything we're developing is aligned with our thematic as well as our original users and their pain points. So from there, we kind of iterated upon all these different hub designs and landed on some major themes that we want to focus on. And in this, we kind of focused on the idea of integrating into a natural environment, especially using materials like glasses, wood, stone. And then, as we mentioned, developing this concept in Burnett Woods, a large aspect of this project will be making sure that there's a thoughtful aspect to the landscape integration.
All right, following the CMF and thematic discussions, I hopped into Twinmotion just to get a feel of how our topography was working with the natural environment and how the hub could be even more naturally integrated with the central courtyard, landscaping around it, and the paths that users would take from the MLK Drive up to the hub.
So the hub will be divided into two levels, like Quinn just mentioned earlier. For the bottom floor, they will have different sort of functionality that not tightly related into the mobility side of the user experience. Will be focused more on creating a space where for productivities, hangout, and recreation.
And then I worked with Friedrich a lot in the collaboration for this Twinmotion model, where I was looking at materiality changes, how we could incorporate light and provide shade, but enough light for the inside of the hub. And we came up with these sort of ribs that align the glass, which would be able to be articulated and work with the sun to provide the optimal amount of light inside, allowing users to just be able to walk around and feel connected to the space, as well as lighting effects. They had a big portion of the ideation and looking at how we can incorporate light both in the gondolas and in the hub to be able to give a personalized user experience.
Okay, now we'll get into the design of the vehicles. So starting off, we produced an image board to reference for our design. For these images, we really wanted to capture kind of a friendly and approachable form language, as well as incorporating natural light into our overall design. So starting with the exterior, I started with developing abstract forms, kind of going back and forth with Gravity Sketch and digital sketching. And then I refined those forms a little more and made them more Zoox-like.
For the interior, we kind of mirrored the exterior a little bit. It's symmetrical. It has two facing seats that seat against each other, and there's plenty of room for the users to move around.
Moving forward with the exterior, I refined the concepts further, and we kind of settled on this concept here of having the ground vehicle almost flip to be the rail vehicle. So the form language is very similar in that they complemented each other well. And then from there, I kind of ideated more on some different features like the doors, the design of the windows, things like that. And then went back into Gravity Sketch to finalize some surfacing before taking it into Blender. This was the kind of like final sketch concept I did for the ground and rail vehicle before refining it further in Blender.
moving forward on the development of the CAD for the interior, I went from designing a very sharp, minimalist design to go with a more fluffy, welcoming one. And this kind of mimics like the brand language of the bubbly Zoox brand.
So this is the final package for the Evo A unit, which is the rear vehicle. And then this is the final vehicle package for the ground vehicle. The ground vehicle is a little bigger than the rear vehicle.
Back to kind of the collaborative element, we looked through a lot of different materiality options for the exterior and landed on something that was still true to the theme of the hub, but also individual to the actual vehicles, as well as loyal to the Zoox branding, bringing in those large glass windows, a satin to semi-gloss kind of painted metal frame, those subtle lighting elements, and then obviously the focus on that iconic rim design. The same thing goes thematically for our gondola vehicle, as well as the interior, focusing on soft materiality, subtle lighting, and then just integrated plastics, as we mentioned the IMSE tech integration earlier. And then finally, here's some concept renderings for our two different units, the first being the Evo G unit, and then the Evo A unit.
The more detailed storyboard that highlighting the entire user experience will be shown earlier, but here's our snapshot of how these systems sort of work together and providing new value to the user. The ground unit essentially will be the main part that will take care of the pickup and drop off for the user, whether that's taking them to the final destination or take them to the hub for transit. And here is a quick snapshot of how the hub look like, located in Burnet Wood. And for the hub, once the vehicle arrives to the hub, user will be able to access to both level, and they will stay on both sides, accommodating the different elevation change, and also be elevator to travel between these two floors, make it more accessible for different user group.
All right, looking at the first level, some key design features that we included were natural integration with plants everywhere inside and out, several breakout rooms for both the user groups and like UC students to be able to use them for studying or just general commerce, a help kiosk, as well as a central courtyard that also helps hide the pylons that are incorporated for our Skylink system, which is the gondola system. There's also security cameras on the ceilings because it is Cincinnati and Clifton. So we were looking at a safety aspect as well. Here's a more detailed look for the interior courtyard, a help kiosk for any first-time users who are going to the hub and need help getting around. And here is the second level. You can see on the left and right side the elevators that go up to the second level, as well as people who are getting in and out, and these safety guidelines that help users not cross and get in the gondola's path for added safety, as well as the Skylink system, which is composed of a system and subsystem. So the gondolas are able to stop and allow users to get in and then hop on a different line and go along head to their destination on the Evo A. And then this view just gives you a good lighting scenario. We were also aimed at safety for this project. So being able to be well lit at night is pretty important for basically all users. So this is just a view of MLK and the Burnet Woods area with our hub inside it, showing users crossing the road. And here's another view, just looking at the pathways that Jimmy and I created in Blender and then later rendered in Twinmotion, well lit and with a little bit of Zoox branding on the outside infrastructure. This shows the staircase that goes up to the second level, as well as people going towards the east side of the station to be able to get the ground units. And here, this shows the east side, where the ground units are housed in the lower level, as well as people getting in and out of the Evo B ground units. And this shows you a general landscape of the Twinmotion scene that we used for all the renderings, where there's a lot of green space, pads, and the hub stands above all of them. And you can see sort of the natural integration that we were going for towards the entirety of the project. All right, thank you for viewing. We were Team 3. We hope you liked our project.
Let's cut it.